All this raid ranking talk recently on my channel has got me excited to talk about and rank some other content within the World of Warcraft. I mean, raids and dungeons are a big fundamental part of the game, but they are but one piece of a very large puzzle. Another huge element that helps to make World of Warcraft so enjoyable is its huge, expansive zones. Keep in mind that you spend a lot of time in these zones doing things like questing, PvPing, and overall just doing activities to fill your stay in this huge MMO we all know and love. Zones can be beautiful, expansive, windswept hills, or frozen, sinister, decaying landscapes. Blizzard has never been shy to using a huge variety of set pieces and additional options to craft some pretty fantastic or downright creepy areas. And with the more colorful, cartoony style of graphics WoW boasts, this often makes them more charming to look at, even when they're meant to be pretty scary or evil. With all that out of the way, let's do some zone ranking. I plan to rank all the zones from each continental mass in WoW at some point or another, starting with Burning Crusades, Outland. Outland is such an amazing place in WoW lore, a huge world once known as Draenor that was shattered by the mass opening of portals, ripping it to pieces and leaving it the shattered landscape now known as Outland. Outland is so alien when compared to a large variety of other zones in World of Warcraft. Flying chunks of landmass, strange colors, and a huge vibrant amount of flora and fauna help to make an extremely unique and visual experience. Well, what am I waiting for? Let's start ranking these Outland zones by starting off with the weakest zone of them all. Shadowmoon Valley and me don't exactly see eye to eye. Maybe it's because once everyone started farming primals in the Throne of Elements, Shadowmoon was the next best thing and became a nasty little farmer's hub. Or maybe it's because I just found questing there to be kinda lacking. Yes, I'm aware Shadowmoon has the Terokkar questline, as well as Black Temple and the Netherwing Drakes, but those things, in my opinion, aren't enough to save Shadowmoon from my disdain. Personally, I've always found the zone to be kind of an eyesore to look at, and this is coming from someone who loves the color green. But for some reason, I find it overstays its welcome here in Shadowmoon. A major issue I have with Shadowmoon is just how dead it is. Like, I know it's supposed to be like this because of the Burning Legion and Gul'dan corrupting the landscape, but the zone is so barren it makes the old barrens look really good. And it has barren in its name. Overall, Shadowmoon is one of those zones that is just kinda harsh on the eyes, doesn't offer a questing experience that's all that memorable, and overall just is kind of a chore to finish, so sadly it takes my worst spot. Calling Blade's Edge a bad zone is really hard for me, especially considering so many people seem to think it is one. On one hand, its design is really unique and at times is really charming. Its questing experience isn't all that annoying, being mostly made up of kill quests, and overall it feels pretty solid. Well, mostly. Its biggest problem is how you have to move around it. Navigating it can be a complete pain, especially if you don't have flying. And keep in mind, in early BC, it was unlikely when you came here for your first time that you had flying. Though the navigation can be annoying, I still see Blade's Edge as an overall pretty ambitious and downright endearing zone. The sharp rock formations around the mountains give it a very arid design, which is balanced out by the small sections of beautiful forests found between. Mix that in with some pretty crystal spires around the upper edges, and overall Blade's Edge is quite the diamond in the rough. Overall, it's not perfect, but I find its experience to be much greater than that of the previously mentioned Shadowmoon. If it wasn't for the issue with the moving around the zone, Blade's Edge might be one of my all-time favorites. Hellfire Peninsula, much like Blade's Edge, catches a pretty bad rap for one key detail, and I understand it, but I think its other details more than make up for it for the most part. The key detail most people hate being how bland it looks, both from the set pieces and the color scheme point of view. Don't get me wrong, I've complained a bunch on this channel about Blizzard's overuse of the color orange. Molten Core comes to mind. And by no means is most of Hellfire a visual masterpiece, nor is its set piece design that great either. But while it may suffer to some degree visually, its questing experience and overall PvP atmosphere it generates help to pull it out of the gutter, at least in my eyes. Maybe I'm nostalgic, though I gave it a pretty low spot, so I can't be that blind to it. But either way, I feel like the questing for a first time Burning Crusade experience is really solid. The quests are handled with pretty good care, and they offer a pretty solid amount of variety too. Also, as I mentioned, the PvP was really good here back in the day, and I still see people out here killing each other for towers, or raiding Honorhold or Thrallmar to this date. Hellfire may not be that great in the visual department, but it easily makes up for it in other areas to create a decent little starting zone for Burning Crusade's brand new world. Netherstorm is easily a fan favorite among a lot of people, and for good reason. Its design choices are a big departure, much like several other zones in Outland, from the more standard fare high fantasy of vanilla WoW, sporting a very sci-fi appearance. Netherstorm used to be the landmass of Farallon, before the portals Ner'zhul opened began ripping apart Draenor, turning it into what it is now, Netherstorm. The floating rock masses make up a huge majority of the land you walk upon while you battle against the Burning Legion and Kael'thas's forces for control of this shattered landscape. But don't think that bleak description is meant to hinder your enjoyment. Netherstorm is visually one of the most unique and vibrant zones that has ever graced World of Warcraft. Sporting a large amount of different purples and pinks, the color scheme is pretty unique. But what if you get bored of shattered rocks and mana forges sucking up all the energy, you might be asking? Why not pay a visit to one of Netherstorm's many ecodomes, where you can see a lush forest full of a lot of different animals, and even the awesome city of Stormspire, a personal favorite of mine. Netherstorm offers a pretty solid questing experience, though not one of my personal favorites. It's good enough to keep me going while I enjoy this charming, colorful, shattered little piece of heaven. Of all the forests in World of Warcraft, Terokkar is easily one of my favorites. Maybe I'm biased because I also love Shattrath City, which just so happens to be in the zone, but it's honestly so much more than that if I had to be honest. Terokkar houses a very charming landscape to look upon, with beautiful lush trees known as Olimba trees, which are famous for their glimmering cones that sit nestled within their lush leaves. These cones help to give Terokkar a much needed edge over more traditional forests in World of Warcraft, as it adds a shiny but not overbearing set of lights among the treetops. Terokkar used to be the zone of Talador, as well as pieces of Spires of Iraq, before the Horde and its fell magic corrupted the zone, turning it from its more autumn-esque colors to a shimmer of green that it now has. Though it may be corrupted, the green landscape in my opinion actually helps to make Terokkar look more charming than its previous incarnation, and also helps to really make the Olimba cones stand out. The questing in Terokkar is pretty solid, and the wildlife is also pretty decent to look at as well, especially the Arakoa, the ancient bird race of Old Draenor. Overall, Terokkar is a pretty solid little zone, that even without Shattrath City stands out as being pretty memorable. We're at the top 2, and honestly, gun to my head, either of these could have made my number 1 spot. I ended up going with Zangarmarsh as my next to best zone, but don't think that means for a minute that Zangar isn't amazing, because it's absolutely fantastic. From its charming and soothing blue color scheme, its constant rainfall, honestly, I'm getting sleepy just looking at it. Nap time. Oh, I guess I could also talk about the sweet-looking gigantic mushrooms. I guess. If you ask me, I can't even think of a more unique-looking zone in World of Warcraft. The mixture of all the things I mentioned really helps to create this very elaborately designed-looking place, that I almost have to wonder if they were on mushrooms when they were developing it. Aside from the mushrooms and the color scheme, the landmark of Coilfang Reservoir helps to add a beacon of visual stimulant to an already very stimulating zone, mixed in with some pretty amazingly unique flora and fauna, as well as a solid questing experience, and you have one of WoW's greatest zones easily. I guess I should mention that the entire zone used to be underwater prior to the Shattering of Draenor, but you probably already guessed that, huh? When picking my number 1 spot, it was challenging to decide, but once I was sure, man, was I sure. It had to be Nagrand. There are so many majestic things to say about this once great home of the ogres, but honestly, I think most people just looking at it can already tell why I like it so much. Might as well talk about its crown feature first, the floating islands. Easily one of the greatest visual eye candies in the history of WoW. These islands just naturally pull a lot of people towards them, whether it's to explore them or simply just to AFK and enjoy that cosmic skybox. I have found myself AFKing on one of these bad boys so many times I'm certain I've spent more time on these islands than doing anything else in WoW. Of course, talking only about the islands would be a pretty cruel insult to this zone as it has so many things going for it. As I mentioned, the skybox looks positively stunning against the floating islands, as well as Nagrand's very simple but effective green plain style landscape. The creatures like the Elix and the Talbuks that all roam its grassy plains are all adorable and majestic to behold, and its questing experience is easily one of the best in Burning Crusade. I mean, you have Hemet Nessingwary's famous hunting quest, as well as the famous Ring of Blood. While Burning Crusade has a ton of appeal in most of its zones, Nagrand is easily the best zone in the expansion for me, and possibly one of the greatest in all of World of Warcraft. Well, there you have it. I've ranked every Outland zone from worst to best. Stay tuned because I'm doing Northrend next, and oh man, I can hardly wait. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe and check out some more of my videos, but more importantly than that, hit me up in the comments with your own rankings of the Outland zones. I love reading opinions on stuff like this, and just debating or talking about it. It kinda soothes me, to be honest. Well, as always, I'm Captain Potato, and I'll see you guys next time, next video.